Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Norman Bonds. I was the engineer on the crew. I live in Abilene, Texas. I have 3 daughters. Mickey, my oldest. My middle daughter is Harley, and my baby girl is Suzanne. I think we all wound up with a Suzanne. I first met Milt on December 7th, 1942. I was instructor engineer. He was getting his first flight in the B-24. We hit it off good that day.
Right. From then on.
From then on.
Yeah, right.
We didn't know we'd be on the same group. I was stuck there as a permanent party because I was teaching flight engineer. But in January, I talked them into letting me get on the crew, and bang, I got with Milt, which was the reason I guess I'm back here. Well, he was the greatest. I don't think anybody, Tom or any other guys or any of the big shots over there that needed to go on a flight mission or go on a bombing mission, they always went with our crew.
What were the names of the crew members?
I don't have.
And who you remember in their position?
Gibson, I had to write these down every time we got off the ground, or maybe I could. James Gibson was the co-pilot, and Winfrey Hiram Cates was our navigator, and I was the engineer. Jose Marcus Contreras Jr.
Anastasio Marcus
Contreras Jr. Chico was our radio operator. Orla Reichel from New York was our, Chico was from Mesilla Park, New Mexico. Orla Reichel was our assistant engineer from New York. Paul Ebner, who had a massive heart attack a few years back, dead now, was our assistant radio operator. And James Garrett from Kentucky was our armor gunner. And Waldo McKay was our tail gunner from Nogales, New Mexico. Nogales, Arizona.
Arizona, yeah.
Harold Marion Thomas was, of course, our bombardier. He was number one. Best bombardier that ever went to town. I don't think we ever had a target that Tom didn't lay them right where they were.
All right.
Right.
Go ahead, and the gentleman in the middle, go ahead and introduce in your family there.
Okay, I'm Milt and Werner, and we joined up, we formed this crew, or rather the Air Force, Army Air Corps formed this crew on December the 7th. December 7th, 1942, and at Davis Mountain Field, and we started
in January. That's so you first flew the B-24.
Yeah. Well, not this December. Yeah. December of 42. Our first B-24 flight. Yeah. And the crew that Norman mentioned, that's the crew that we trained with, and for about we were there about a month. From there we went to Alamogordo, New Mexico for second phase, and then to Clovis, New Mexico for third, which was a month, and then to Clovis, New Mexico for third phase, which was about a month, and then to Topeka, Kansas, which was considered the fourth phase or the checkout phase before going overseas. And from there, we went to Warner Robins, Georgia, to pick up our airplane, a B-24, and went on down to Miami to 39th Street Airport. And there we got our sealed orders for going overseas. And when you go overseas, you don't know where you're going. You got sealed orders, and you don't open them until you're off the ground and on the way. And that's when we first found out that we were on the way to Agra, India. And it took us about approximately 2 weeks to get over to Agra, India, flying. And I'll cite the route pretty soon here because I got the route here.
Okay.
And then Agra, India actually wasn't our destination because we actually ended up going further than that, going into Kunming, China to the 14th Airport. And so we were one of the first B-24 replacement bomb crews into the 14th Air Force, and we got there. I forget what day we got there, but again, I've got it here in the files as to what day we got there.
And your family members?
Now, family members is my wife Tilly, and I've got 3 sons: Milton, Mark, and Michael, and they're all doing okay. They're all married. We've got grandkids nowadays, and of course, I don't know if it was mentioned, but this is October the 16th, what year?
1990.
October 16th, 1990.
And how old are y'all fellas here? How old are y'all?
We're all the same age. We're all around 60.
Damn.
More or less on the high side.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm 69, and Norman is coming up on 69. I forget what Tom's coming up on. He's coming up on 68, aren't you?
69 in the spring.
So he's coming up on 69. And so we're all about the same. And,
Okay, Tom, I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself and all.
I'm Harold Thomas, live in Montpelier, Ohio, and I'm the bombardier on this crew. I have a son, Tommy Thomas. He has a family of 5 grandchildren, of course, to me. 3 boys and 2 girls. We're very proud of them. They live in Richmond, Indiana. Tommy Jr. is now a junior at Indiana University in where is that?
Bloomington.
Bloomington, Indiana. Okay. Oh.
Maybe as a donor.
So was it a whole lot I can
My
add?
daughter Susie.
Oh yeah, I have a daughter, Susie Thomas, who lives in Colorado Springs. She's teaching in the school system there. She's not married yet. She's still sorting. We had a very enjoyable trip, even though at times it was a little hectic, but as we look back on it, why, it was quite an eventful tour of duty in China, and I guess I'd have to say that I enjoyed every bit of it. I wouldn't want to miss it for the world, and paid a show on her. At that time, of course, the serviceman was treated much better than the Korean or the Vietnam veteran, and I felt very sorry for those boys. They didn't get the type of treatment they should have gotten. That's about all I can add at this point.
Excellent. It's very good.
Okay, the route we took going overseas, we like I mentioned earlier, our 4th phase, we left Topeka, Kansas for Warner Robins, Georgia, and we got to Warner Robins, Georgia on the 14th of April, 1943, and we left there on the 19th of April, 1943, and this is the route, the best I can remember. We left Warner Robins in Macon, Georgia for 39th Street Morrison Airport in Miami, Florida. From Miami, we flew to Borinquen Field, Puerto Rico. From Borinquen, we flew to Atkinson, British Guiana. From British Guiana, we flew to Belém, Brazil. And from Belém, Brazil, we flew to Natal, Brazil. And from Natal, Brazil, we flew to Ascension Island. And I don't know if y'all remember that Ascension Island was real prominent in the Falkland Islands deal where all our tankers refueled the British bombers coming across from Great Britain going to the Falkland Islands. The American tankers off of Ascension Island is where the British were. That was their refueling station for working against the Falkland Islands. And then from Ascension we went to Accra, which at that time was called Gold Coast, Africa, but since then it's changed. They call it Ghana, and then I don't know if that's what they still call it or not. But that was Accra. From Accra we went to Kano, Nigeria. These were all about 6 to 8 hour flights in all of these with the B-24. From Kano to El Fasher, And to tell you the truth, I don't know where the hell El Fasher is or what country that is. But anyhow, El Fasher is 7 hours from Kano, Nigeria. And I think it was in Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. I'm not sure though. And then from El Fasher we went to Khartoum, which is Eritrea. And then from there we went to Gura, Eritrea. And that's about where Stephanie was born, you know. That's her birthplace, you know. And then from there, from Gura, we went to Aden, Arabia, which we call Saudi Arabia now.
Who was Stephanie?
Stephanie Werner. Yeah.
Tell them who Stephanie is.
His wife. His wife. She was born in. She's born.
You're talking about, right?
She was born in Ethiopia. You see the little blonde girl, blue eyes.
That's right.
Yeah. And then from Aden, Arabia, went to Salalah, which is also in Arabia. And then from Salalah to Karachi, which is in India. And from Karachi to Agra, which is also in India. That's interior India. And at Karachi is where they retrofitted our airplane and everything that to make it ready for full combat in China. So we were actually in Agra, India, 23 days to prepare our airplane and all that to get ready to go to China to fly to Hump and fly over in China. So, and let's see, and we arrived in Agra. From Agra we went to Chabua, which is up in Assam Valley. Then from Chabua on June the 6th, 1943, we left Chabua, India, and arrived in Kunming, China. So June 6, 43, we arrived in China, and we left in April. So that was 3 months to get from the States to our place over in Kunming, China.
I'll butt in there if I may.
Yeah.
We picked this airplane up in Macon, Georgia. Milt was Werner Robin. Of course, Milt was the pilot. And we flew that airplane all these places that he's named. We landed in Chabua, India, and they didn't think that he had enough experience to fly it over the Hump, the Himalayan, so they sent a seasoned pilot over to take us. And after we'd gone all this distance in our airplane, this guy crashed it, landed in Kunming. I thought Bill was going to kill him. I thought we all would.
They fixed it up, Bill. Yeah.
But that was the irony.
That's the main thing we want to know on this thing.
Yeah.
Are those stories right there.
Right there. But tell them about some of the stops on the trip over.
Yeah.
Some of the things you picked up.
Oh, now.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a maximum of 3 days at any base.
Yeah. Well, when we left the States, when we left Morrison Field, Miami, we were bound for Waterfield, Trinidad, and we had an engine fail out after we took off at Miami. So the nearest base en route was actually Puerto Rico, which is now Rainey Air Force Base. At that time was Brinquin Field. So we went to Brinquin, and that's where they fixed our we had a busted supercharger there, and that's what they fixed that, and then we took off from there to continue on.
And Milt had a couple of buddies he'd been down at Randolph.
Yeah.
Well, it was at Brinquin.
Yeah.
And the only way we could divert was have trouble with
it actually busted on it. and we lost our. At that time, the superchargers used engine oil for cooling, and well, when it got that cracked oil fitting in it, it took all the oil out of the engine, so we had low oil pressure in the engine. We couldn't run the engine anymore, so we went on in there. And along the route, of course, we had a lot of. Of course, we were nothing but a bunch of green country kids.
How old were y'all?
We were. I don't know. Cates was the oldest. He was 21, I believe, wasn't he?
No, he's older now. He was 23.
Yeah, right. But most of us were let's see, I
was born in 21.
Yeah, 20. I was 21 at that time because I was born in July 21, and this was early 43. So I was 21 at the time. I forget. Case was the oldest. I know that. And
Harold, how old were you? Do you know?
I was
I
21.
think I was 21 at that time.
Yeah, he was
See, this is
21, yeah.
June the 6th,
Yeah.
And so was,
These were all-
was Norman. 'cause
So these were all.
43.
Oh, you already got it.
Yeah.
I would have been 21.
Yeah.
I was 21 the previous November.
Yeah.
I was 21
Yeah.
in March.
We was all just. We weren't quite dry behind the ears yet. Most of us. And but of course that's what it took in World War II. It took a bunch of dumb country boys that didn't know no better. You know, they didn't have enough sense to get scared. Yeah, and we arrived. Well, I said we were said when we arrived in Kunming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Tell us about this plane
our
crash.
first combat mission was we got there on the 6th, and our first combat mission was on June the 8th. You know, it was it wasn't it was just 4 hours and 50 minutes. I don't know where that was to, and then we did a lot of ferrying back and forth across the Hump to get our own fuel over there. And let's see, along the way here we had problems with being shot up, and well, let's see here in
Who were the AVTs?
Jeez.
ABG?
AVGs.
That was the American Volunteer Group.
that is the Flying Tigers, yeah.
Yeah,
We weren't Flying Tigers. We were in the bomber. They were all fighter pilots.
All the P-40s.
Yeah, they were all that.
we're called
Yeah.
Flying Tigers.
Yeah.
We're the
Yeah.
Air Force
Yeah.
version of it.
Yeah,
They were a bunch of civilians that went over there to fight for the Chinese government. And they probably about 70, 80 of them, I think, something like that, flying P-40.
yeah.
To defend Kunming and the area around it.
Uh-huh.
One of the most famous of those is
Yeah.
Tex Hill, who lives down here in San Antonio. I think he still lives there. but I'm
Still, yeah, right.
And there was Bob Scott. And,
Yeah.
there was several of them there that
Yeah.
we could name off.
Yeah.
Casey Vincent,
Yeah.
and quite a number of them.
But that's who you were helping out here. Y'all came in to help them out.
Well, they were allowed to come into the U.S. Air Force. I believe they disbanded the ABGs on the 4th of July, 1942. So by the time we got there, well, it was all 14th Air Force,
Yeah.
commanded by General Chenault. Some of them went into the 14th Air Force, and those that didn't want to come into the Air Force, I guess they came home, or I don't know what did happen to them. But anyhow, they weren't required to do that. They could do that on their own free.
So who were y'all under the command of when y'all got there?
General Claire Chenault.
Okay.
I think he home birthplace was Commerce, Texas, down here, I
He
believe.
was born there, but he was raised in Louisiana. Yeah. Yeah. And we, of course, we had several airplanes shot up on us, but
Go ahead, continue.
but on November 15th of 43, I don't know what that was. That our first bailout?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we were shot up over Hong Kong that night, and of course that's an 11-hour mission, and that night we all bailed out in central China. Well, it's kind of east central China, and
Can you possibly point it out on that map there
It
and
took us-
pick it up? Is that possible?
I don't think. I think
so.
it's China's so big. I don't think you can hardly see it. But it's in east central China. It was probably a couple of 100 miles west of Hong Kong area where we bailed out.
Okay.
And then we walked and were gradually all intercepted by the Chinese underground that were sympathetic to our cause and with Chenault's intelligence group, and we eventually all got together, and I forget how many days after we bailed out, and then they communicated with 14th Air Force some kind of way, and they got us all herded together to the same place, and then a 14th Air Force transport plane come in and picked us up. Took about 3 weeks, I guess.
I believe we'd gone, I believe around 16 days. I remember we got
something
back
like
on
that.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, something like that. And
that make it 16 years from the time we.
I guess so, something like that. And of course, we didn't have anybody badly hurt at that time, except when that rifle had his knife stuck in. When that rifle had his knife stuck in his leg.
Ebner hit on a rock pile.
No, somebody had a knife stuck in their thigh.
We took that photographer with us.
Yeah, but anyhow,
that carbine across front of him.
yeah, come up, yeah, knocked it. Well, he knocked his teeth out. Yeah, but Ebner, Reichel is the one. He had his knife in a scabbard on the side of him, and when he bailed out, of course, when you bail out, you pop like the end of a whip. And his knife flew around and with his scabbard, it was right in front of him. And when he hit the ground, he did a full knee bend. And when he did, the knife went through that scabbard right into the top of his leg there. And I'm pretty sure that was right. There's one of our crew members.
Almost made a steer out of it.
Yeah, I think right. Yeah. Yeah. And but anyhow, that is the only injury that we had. We had a Navy captain with us, which is a full colonel in the Air Force, and he was a photo intelligence officer, and he got out to us. It was 11 of us aboard, and we all 11 got back, and it took us.
Was the man with us that time?
Yeah, red man, yeah, because he bailed out right ahead of me, and I could see that red hair sticking up right on top of his head when he hit the airstream out there. And the name of our plane was Homesick Susie. That's our original plane that we took overseas. And of course, after we bailed out of her, well, it was gone. And then our second plane was Susie's sister. And was that the second airplane we bailed out of or not?
No, we crashed it in India.
We crashed it in India, and then
How did that happen?
Chug-A-Lug, and then Chug-A-Lug we crashed in. We bailed out because of bad weather and running out of fuel coming from China to India, and then our third crash was with Chug-A-Lug, and
It was back in Mama. We bailed out in India.
that was the
Chug-A-Lug is the one that we
we were shot up
Shot
over
up to
Hainan Island. That was we had the right. We crashed it at early hours of the morning, around 2 o'clock in the morning. We were shot up over Hainan Island and had our actuating cylinder shot out, which is what you need to put your landing gear down. And we couldn't get the right landing gear down. We had all the other wheels down, so we circled around the airport till we was out of fuel almost at Kunming, and then we went in around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We landed, and it didn't cartwheel. All we did was pull the right outboard propeller out of the engine, and it cartwheeled across the field. But nobody got hurt in that. But that's the flight where Chico was hurt the worst of any of our people. And he was shot through the arm, and he's got a stiff immobile arm, and got, I don't know what his high percentage of disability is on that, but he got, and the rest of the crew, they all medicated him, and I believe was that the flight you got shot to? You got
No, I was before then.
Yeah. Well, and of course Tom, of course that, let's see, that was
Tom got, when Tom got, he was in Homesick Susie, and he came up through the nose.
That's when he got shot.
Shot Tom.
Well, that's when you were in a hospital with
Yellow John.
I was in the hospital with Yellow Jonas, and Tom come over the night before the mission. He said, well, Mulligan, was he going to?
Yeah,
he said, Ed Mulligan's going to take the crew tomorrow. And he said, he's going to fly us tomorrow. And I said, well, real fine. I said, when y'all get back, I said, come back and tell me about the mission. And on Tom, just as he walked out the door, he said, Bill, he said, I'll be back if they have to carry me back. And out there, next night, they was carrying him right in the door.
Is that right?
Yeah, Mulligan. Mulligan. He's the guy that came over to India to teach us how to fly the Hump.
Yeah.
He run off the end of the runway. He tore the plane up.
Yeah. And
Milt one statement. He said, "Oh hell, you flying an airplane over halfway around the world."
Yeah.
And then got this stuff flying a little bit further.
I tried to get the date of our second bailout. Was
January the 25th of 44.
In January
25th.
I got it here. This is January
Was that
24th.
second bailout the one where you were walked through the jungle for 19 days?
That was in November.
That was in November. wasn't
November,
it?
yeah.
Don't forget that.
November 15th.
One thing that
Oh, here it is. Kunming Chabua crashed. That's it. Yeah, January the 25th. That was our second bailout, and that was on account of fuel and bad weather.
That was at 400 feet too.
We went over.
very much.
We went over with 6 airplanes from China to India to get provisions and bombs and fuel and all of that.
I'll get it in here.
And the weather was just socked. It was 100% socked in when nobody could land, and we lost 4 crews that day out of the 6. And of course, after we bailed out, they had us help them pick up the remains of the bodies and the body parts that we could find around other airplanes and help identify them. And that gets kind of gory, you know. Like Lazarini's crew, you remember right on the end of the runway there? He crashed, his airplane crashed very close to ours, except they were in theirs, we weren't in ours. We jumped out, we hit the parachute. Somebody landed on the parachute. Tom landed on the parachute department's roof, you know, and the parachute riggers all come out and got him and got his parachute and up and see him.
That's kind of funny. I tried to steer myself, but I looked like going right through the roof from that shack. And I didn't quite hit the shack. I hit right in front of a thump, you know, and it's raining on the ground. It was bad weather.
Yeah.
That sergeant heard that thump inside. He come running out. He looked over, he rolled that chute up. He said, hardly even got wet. I'm back inside. Well, he can have what he wants to. I ain't got any further use for it. I walked over to the road, and here come a Jeep down that road, just hit my high spot. He said, hurry up, jump in. He said, airplane just crashed off the road. You know? And they never did know I was in that airplane. So. And I can remember old case going out and surveying the old airplane, and he picked up a pair of his dividers, and grin on his face, he's looking at them dividers all bent up, you know, of the debris of that B-24.
I got a picture there.
One of the funniest things, it went right over the operation shack, just cleared it about 20 feet, and them guys inside didn't know there wasn't anybody flying that airplane.
It landed in the Akak battery there, British Indian Akak battery, in a tea plantation. There's all tea plantations around that area. And I know.
Didn't hurt it.
I know when I come out, of course we were so low, when I bailed out, I just took a half a swing and I hit the ground. I never even lost my footing. I just stayed standing and started walking, you know. And right away I could see these black, but of course I knew we were in friendly territory. Whereas the first time we bailed out, we didn't know where the hell we were, you know, and I landed, I don't know where everybody else landed, but I landed up on the side of a mountainside, and I just coiled up in my parachute and waited till morning, because this was around 2:15 in the morning when we jumped at the first time.
That's the one I lost.
So I waited till daylight, and I couldn't see nothing, but I could hear shooting, you know, the artillery shell. And I could look on one mountain range, and I could see where they're shooting one direction, and then I could look further over, and I could see another mountain range, they're shooting another direction. So I knew I was right in the line, you know, somewhere there. And they...
Well, we buzzed that prisoner of war camp there in Hong Kong, if you remember. We went into the Kowloon dock area, and Tom they were launching the ship.
Oh, yeah.
And we came in from the China Sea at 200 feet, and Tom, they were out christening the ship and all, and Tom christened it. Some 500-pounder.
Yeah.
And we went on in to pull up into Hong Kong, and there was a prisoner of war camp there, and we buzzed over it, and we goofed doing that, really. If we'd have gone on, we would have probably been a lot better off.
Tom, what about the time? Is there a time that you were the only one that bailed out?
Yeah, that was another raid down there.
That was that mission where I was in the hospital.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one with this mulligan down there.
You're just getting out of there, huh?
Milligan, I guess.
Of course, the bombardier and the navigator, they got an airspeed indicator, and they know how what airspeed you need for that damn airplane to stay in the air. And I don't know, I might be talking ahead of Tom here, but he was watching that airspeed indicator. Of course, they were boogered up that night too. You know, they were shot. Well, hell, he was shot between the legs, you know. And that airplane kept the airspeed kept getting lower and lower and lower. And I don't know. I guess Tom kept this goddamn thing ain't gonna stay in the air. You know, I'm gonna get. I believe that though.
Oh, the Bombay doors. That Bombay door almost Tom went out. Well, I tell you what happened. Boy, you was ready down watchman, man. Couldn't when he crashed. When we come on.
I didn't want a second time.
He did. Well, he still crashed it when he landed.
Anyhow, we went to Hainan Island that day.
That's where you went.
Older Joe's had come back. There was a bay down there at the base of Hainan Island.
Yeah.
And they reported a bunch of merchant ships in there, which was our #1 target. So we went in there, and the weather forecast was that it was supposed to be unlimited visibility, you know. Well, we got in there, and there's all sorts of broken clouds below us. Well, we were attached to the 375th Squadron that day. We were flying Low Joe. I think we were the only airplane in the air from the 425th. So we flew with Hank Brady. He was a flying lead ship there, the 375th, and we tacked on to him. Well, the rest of the formation, they decided to call us quits and go on back, but not Hank. He wanted to go down and bomb that area. Well, there was some pretty good-sized boats tied up to the dock down there. In fact, big ones. Well, we kept going down and down. I kept recomputing the altitude as we went down. And finally, we leveled off at 4,000 feet. We would see the men running on the ground. You know, we weren't very high up for daylight bombing. But we started on the bomb run, and the lead bombardier and Hank Brady's airplane got partway down the bomb run, and he happened to notice a bigger boat off to one side. Well, it was too late to correct. So we decided to make a 360, which was a mistake, as we realize now. But anyhow, we started around that 360, and Gibson, the co-pilot, called up and said, we got a few fighters at 3 o'clock. And I thought, well, what can a few fighters do? I hadn't really been. This was, I think, I don't remember what mission this was, but anyhow, we hadn't really been saturated with fighters before, not that bad. We'd have seen some, but not that bad. But we started around at 360, and then they reported the fighters at about 3 o'clock. And I didn't pay them much mind, you know. I thought only 2 or 3 fighters up there, they couldn't do much good, you know. But by the time we'd made that 360, there was about 30 of them up there.
These are zeros.
Getting to sew stitches up and down our sides, you know. And we made the bomb run all right, got rid of the bombs, but they were working us over pretty good, and they shot out one of our engines. And of course, when they did that, well, the rest of the formation pulled away from us. I can tell you this, if there hadn't been a friendly cloud there, we wouldn't have been here right now. But we happened to run into that cloud. We flew instruments. Of course, the fighters can't follow you into the cloud. They can't see you. I remember we flew in that for a little bit. We popped out, and man, I tell you, we made a U-turn right back into it. But anyhow, we were able to loop the fighters, and but we were down at 4,000 feet on 3 engines, and we had another blowing a lot of oil on the same side. Well, at 4,000 feet, we had to pick up 2,000 feet before we got even to the level of our runway back at Kunming. So running those 3 engines as hard as we had to run them, we used excessive fuel, of course. We kept just getting over the mountains, just getting over the mountains, just getting over the mountains. Finally, there was our airbase right ahead of us. So we come right in for an emergency landing. But we're about ready to touch her down, and I believe it was Bond yelled up and said, "Hey, the nose gear isn't down." So we decided to go around. Well, they threw the coal to her to go around, and she began to cut out. She was run out of fuel. Just get a gulp of fuel, and she'd but we were low then. Well, they made a turn. Of course, the pilot, Milliken, he's about going berserk. One minute he yelled, bail out. The next minute, stay in, bail out. Well, he yelled, bail out one time too many, and I went out. And we were so low, I could see the rows of the rice paddies, which is about like onions, so I know it was awful low. Just made one half swing, and I hit that mud, and the mud flew. And what had happened, I thought we was going to make it, see, so I had the chest pack on, and I threw it down on the flight deck when we were coming in on the approach, took the chute off. Well, when I decided I was going to have to use it, I put her back on, but I had the jungle pack on the outside. Well, the harness was loose like that, and that when that popped, that knocked the top right off that tooth, one of the rings hit me right in the mouth.
You had it on upside down.
Yeah, I had it wrong side out. The jungle pack was on the outside.
Yeah, when you put it on in a hurry, yeah.
But I went to plop in that rice paddy, and right behind the barracks. Wasn't very far. You could almost walk the barracks. It was a little closer to the road. It was mud clear up to my butt, you know.
Night soil.
Yeah, black, and she was smelly too. But anyhow, I walked over to the road, and about that time, here come a staff car down the road, and it was the general's head of the hospital there. Said, where you been? I said, I just got out of the airplane up there. And he took one look at it. He said, I might as well take you around over to the hospital. So that's when I went on over there, and they doctored up my tooth, and I had shrapnel both my legs.
Yeah.
And so they put me in the hospital for a few days.
Yeah.
I recovered. But I remember General Chenault come over there one day and pinned the Purple Heart.
I got a picture of that.
Have you got that? I'd like to have some.
I'll give you that picture.
I really would like that.
Yeah.
Though that material was burned up in my fire and I don't have any.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was Tom's solo experience. We didn't participate in that. Of course, Norm was in the airplane. I was in the hospital eating gumdrops, to get rid of my yellow jaundice.
I guess one of the funniest things that happened there is they come in and land across the runway. It's like a big pasture field or airfield there. And when the airplane lost speed, the nose gear still wasn't down.
Nose gear never did come down.
You never get time to get it down.
And it come down and ground the nose off.
Yeah.
But old Winford Hiram, he was excited about getting out. He yanked up that camera hatch and that's about 15 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Normally it's only about 4 feet. I think he sprained his ankle.
Yeah.
That was about the only casualty we had.
Yeah. I don't have the date on that because that's not in my form.
Well, we had, I think that day we had 270 machine gun holes in that airplane and 20 millimeter cannon.
Yeah.
And man, it was pretty well riddled. I think it never flew again, did it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we patched it up. That's the one we bailed out.
We bailed out of that the second time.
That was Homesick Susie.
Was it?
Yeah,
That's the one we bailed out.
That was the first one we bailed out of. Yeah. But it took them about 3-4 months to fix it up.
That night we bailed out of it, though. We'd had that monsoon, you remember, mud everywhere. And Cates would stand on his chest pack to look out the dome to get a fix. So he was our navigator. And all of a sudden, of course, his feet were muddy. But all of a sudden we had to bail out, and he came up on the flight deck to that chest pack parachute covered in mud, and he would trying to rub the mud off, knowing he ain't gonna have to jump out of it after standing on it for 2 months.
Well, it was kind of an eerie feeling. If I remember right, it was about 2:30 in the morning, I believe, something like that.
Where's that?
When it's come back from Hong Kong.
Yeah. It was about 2:15. You said it
bailed out.
was there in the morning. No, early.
We was flying in the moonlight up above the overcast.
Well, we come back from Lucha. Well, I got that. Yeah, I'm gonna mention that we didn't bail out, but when we crashed Chug-A-Lug, that was on the 22nd of April, '44, and we took off from Lucha. Lujo.
Lujo.
And that was a 13-hour mission, and that's when we got our actuating cylinder shot out at that, and we couldn't get the right gear down, so we had to land on the left gear and the nose gear and lost our right prop, pulled out the engine when we landed. That was a 13-hour mission. Of course, that airplane's not supposed to fly over 12 hours, but we was all right. They were all turning real good when we landed, even at 13 hours. And that's a mission where we got one of our 3 commendation medals we got that from Admiral Limits on that particular flight, because That's when we sank all that shipping down
We
there.
got 35,000 tons.
Salma Bay, wasn't it?
At Saigon.
Salma Bay.
Can't say-
At Saigon that time,
Yeah.
even though we lost.
Yeah, I guess Salma Bay was on Hainan Island.
Yeah, and so that worked out real good and fortunate there.
See how Chico got
Yeah.
shot? We
Yeah.
were 200 feet off the water when we were.
Was that? Let's see. That's when he was shot.
Yeah, and
yeah.
Well, the trouble
we
with
were
that-
strafing and they were strafing
Yeah.
off of the ships.
The
Yeah.
problem with that was there was a gunboat off to one side and
Yeah.
working on us while we was trying to
Yeah.
bomb a bigger ship.
Yeah.
If we'd have been a run on
Yeah.
him, he wouldn't have done
Yeah, and then our last mission.
We got a lot of them that day.
Our last mission was on 21 May 44. That was our last mission over there. That wasn't a real long mission. I forget where that was too, but then we come back to the state.
How many missions did y'all fly in all?
75 is what they got on the record.
I flew 101 on my record.
Well, I had 75.
Yeah.
What Jamie Goff gave me.
Yeah, because when I flew instructor pilot for a lot of other crews, you know.
Is there a time y'all went to India and that was y'all were the only crew that made it?
Yeah,
That was when we bailed out.
That's where I went to the parachute.
that's when we bailed out the second time in January. Let's see, March, February. Yeah, that was January 25th. Yeah, January 25th. Yeah, six crews went over, and I don't know, 4 or 5.
Five of them. We were the only ones.
But I guess we're the only ones that got.
There's five of them.
Yeah.
That was when we were talking about.
Yeah, we're the only ones got back. That
Harry Uzinski,
Yeah.
he was our CO. then.
Yeah.
We lost.
They never did find him.
Well, there's a lot of them. And of course, like I say, we've helped pick up the remains of those that didn't make it. You know, and
Is that when y'all were there for a while? When y'all were behind enemy lines?
no,
we
we weren't in
out
the.
of
That's friendly
Hong Kong.
territory.
That was out of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So we done Chow.
November. That was a November bailout. That was a November
That's when we gathered.
2015 bailout.
Well, there were 7 of us. We
Yeah.
gathered on the. You didn't get together with us for 3 more days.
Well, it was about a week.
Todd and I,
Yeah.
we left all the others.
Yeah.
We got on a mound in a little village over there.
We didn't know it at that time.
No.
That's a warning.
Yeah.
But
And
then
then
Tom and I walked into the village and left everybody else back there. And we'd try to tell them we were from Kunming, and they'd slam the door. The Japs were right there knocking on the door with us, but they were afraid to even talk to us.
We were lucky enough. We landed on just a kind of a narrow corridor between the jump hill.
between the line, yeah, that's where because like I say, the only way I knew which way to go. Well, I knew I was going to go west because we had compasses and we had instructions. We had standard instructions with what to do in the event we bail out over there, and that was go west or upstream. If you come to a stream, always go upstream, never go downstream. And
That would take us toward the mountains.
yeah, and so we all got together, but it was 8 or
3
9.
days.
It's more than 8 or 9 days before we all got together, and then the Chinese, they relayed us. We were totally at their mercy, you know, moving us, and of course they were all working for General Chenault, you know, and his underground, and we ate. They gave us. We had peanuts and parched corn, and occasionally we had eggs.
Tangerines.
Well,
And
first,
a lot of tangerines.
the first meal we had was rice in a bowl of brown rice in the hull.
Didn't have much rice. Though.
But, well, they gave us what they had, but
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
slapping that stuff down. It's full of bugs and worms,
Yeah.
but it's all people had, so
Yeah.
we ate it.
But we didn't. I don't know if any of us got internally sick.
No.
The only worst one was Reichel, and they provided him with a jackass or a pony.
Well, they put us
a
all in.
mule or something. Anyhow, they got and they started having him ride on that animal. I forget what a pony. I think it was. Yeah.
I remember trying to buy that.
Because
We'd hand that old boy the money. He'd take his horse, start walking up. No, we bought that horse. You know, we didn't know what that money was.
And they wouldn't let us walk. They got the chairs.
Yeah.
2 of the Chinese guerrillas, one in the front, one in the back. They put us in the chair and picked us up on their shoulders, and they carried us. They were so glad we were there.
And we told them, hell no, we can walk ourselves as long as they feed us. But with
Could they speak English?
No, we had pointy talkies. It's a gizmo with English on one side and Chinese on the other, you know. And you just point it to the English thing you wanted to say, and they would read the. But of course you run into 90% of people were illiterate. They couldn't read, you know. They couldn't even read the Chinese, you know. But you'd always find just enough in there that could, you know.
We were fortunate enough on the first day though to have that doctor come, you know, and he couldn't speak English because he'd been educated in this country, but it's been 8 years since he'd had any chance to talk with a white man or an American, you know. So he couldn't speak it anymore, but he could understand. We could write it out, and he knew it.
He knew what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Just by spelling it out.
Yeah, and
Well, that guy that fed us a good deal was graduate of the MIT, if you remember.
Was that right?
That little village. He had electricity. He had everything there.
But they'd eat soft eggs with a knife. You know, that's what got me. You know.
Soft fried eggs. They balanced that egg on
They
the
balanced on
top.
that egg.
That's where Kate said made the Japanese taste the bitter salt of the sea.
That's where I gained my taste for Chinese food.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, we hold up. They always found a place for us to sleep, usually in the barn with straw or something like that. We never slept in the house ever, I don't think.
We stayed in the motel there in that last town.
Yeah. Well, that was before the airplane. Well, they said that. Well, the Americans were already in that town, you know.
Well, they had that Navy boy was all that was there, sitting on that radio.
They did like the stuff up the river.
Another TNT and stuff to blow up half of China. They were working for the invasion of Japan then. But they said that DC-3 would wheel land if he saw us. Touch on the wheel, if he saw us, he'd stop. If he didn't, he'd keep going. Of course, we had a long way to walk through the mountains to get there.
I forget where they picked us up. It's around Yang or something.
It was a long trip.
Remember, the runway had a pile of rocks about halfway down it, and he had to kick rudder when he got down there to take off at about a 30-degree angle that way.
Yeah.
But it was one of them old boys that been around airplanes before.
One of them fighters. Yeah.
He got her off.
Yeah.
What'd y'all have for your Thanksgiving dinner?
Well, we got back too late for the turkey.
Yeah.
Somebody got back.
We got back Thanksgiving Day. We got Thanksgiving Day.
Monday, the day after Thanksgiving, they took us to India and we went to Rangoon 3 days in a row.
Yeah,
That was mean. That wasn't nice.
Yeah,
They wasn't nice to us.
Yeah, we weren't back but a few days when they already had us going over there, and they gave us another airplane, you know.
We got that down in Bangalore. Remember that?
Yeah, in Bangalore, we got that. That was Susie's sister. Yeah.
That's where poor old Artie Carp on the snake bed.
Yeah.
And he come on there like a man wanting to be. Remember that when they tell him all these snake stories about the pythons and everything down there? Cobras?
Yeah. Yeah,
we put an oxygen hose in his bed, you know, and when lights were out, well, he tried to get in there in his little shorts. He hit that hose, and I mean, he come out of there like a wild man.
Right.
What was shooting them like ducks here? What were we shooting? Just the planes?
Tell that story about
The story?
Tell a story about you and Harold going out.
Oh, Lord. We were up at Quay Lynn. And we'd have to go way up in the interior there. Anything that was Allied or in Chinese territory, the one occupied. But we went up there to go on a mission, and we landed and taxied over. We didn't have a place or a revetment, but we were there, and they come up with the fact that we were going to get bombed. They called it Jingbao. And they put up one ball, and everybody hit it up to the mountain. Well, Tom and I got to talking that this was our airplane. We wasn't going to let them bomb it and then come in and strafe it. So we went back to the airplane and opened both waist windows. And they had a 50 caliber machine gun on either window. And Tom was standing there in those windows. I got in the top turret and turned the auxiliary power on. And we
You're going to have a turkey shoot.
we were going to have a turkey shoot when they come in to scrape us.
Good thing for us, and they didn't.
Yeah, oh Lord of mercy, we were crazy.
Flew up right under you.
You sure would have. Those zeros that come at you look like firecrackers or something in those wings there, and I could just
Blink, blink, blink.
imagine one of those things coming down that runway.
What was the route y'all took back then? Y'all all came back together
No,
as a crew?
except Tom. We
Tom
all
stayed
come
on.
back together, but they flew us back. We didn't fly back. They
Well, I went different.
American Airlines flew us back. I mean, Eastern Airlines flew us back. I didn't know what you weren't with it.
I left with us and went to India, and they worked on my nose and eye a little
Oh,
bit,
yeah.
and then I wound up coming on in by myself.
Yeah, but we come on in through. We come in almost a reverse route, which we took going over there, and of course when we landed in Miami, coming back to the States, well, there was a lot of hubbub and that going on over the radio, and that was we landed here about 2 hours after Eisenhower and American troops landed in Normandy, opening the second front, which was.
D-Day.
Yeah, that was D. We landed at D-Day. We landed about 2 hours after H hour on D-Day in Miami. So the radio and everything was just full of nothing but the opening the second front in Germany and they weren't worried about welcoming us back to the United States because they were starting another war over there, And that was, and then Tom come back a few days later, weeks later, I guess.
Well, I flew another 25 missions,
Uh-huh.
and I decided to come home.
He was trying to get more Purple Heart clusters and more parachute time, see, and
What'd you think when the rest of the crew left?
Oh, I was a little upset. I thought maybe I made a mistake.
We told
By the time they took off, I was feeling pretty low.
yeah.
I think, God, I could be in the States in a few days, and here I wasn't. Maybe go back to
Yeah.
the box or not at all.
Of course, Tom wasn't said at Tom outranked all of us. See, he was the captain, I was the first lieutenant, and everybody else was lower than that.
But anyhow,
I thought he was going to come back as general, but he
oh, it was, things were getting a little better over there as far as conditions. The thing about it is, we had to live off the land.
Yeah.
And food wasn't a priority item, so they didn't transport that across the hump.
We had plenty of booze, but not much food.
Well, yeah, but that was because we hauled extra contraband. It wasn't on the loading list. But anyhow, gas and bombs was a priority item, and ammunition.
Yeah.
So that was all legally could come across the hump. But anyhow, I come back, in August that same year.
He was a long way behind us, still.
And
We come back in June.
I remember that, well, I think they got to feel a little bit sorry for me. They didn't have me go on the mission, and I got a little bit tired of everybody coming home telling me all about the mission. I'm sitting on my buns at home there. Hell, if they ain't gonna use me, I ain't gonna fool around there. I got things to do at home. So the colonel told me when I told him I'd stay for a second tour over there, he told me, he said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, you get to the point where you think you've had enough, you tell me. He said, I'll let you come home. So that's what I done. I told him, I said, yeah, I think I about had it. So,
Is that Colonel Chenault?
No, that was Colonel Golf at that time.
Jamie
Goff.
Yeah, he lived down in Mercedes, Texas here now, and he retired as a Major General from the Air Force, so he did quite well for himself. But anyhow, a hell of a nice guy, and gentleman all the way. But anyhow, they cut my orders the same day. By 6 o'clock that evening, I had my orders to come home. So I went over to ATC to hitch a ride. All I had was a fourth class priority, which is worth toilet paper on it. But of course, most of the guys let you on, because all of them were combat people. Yeah. 2 o'clock in the morning, I got aboard the C-46, which I hated with a passion, because you could it was all over the swamps all around, kind of crash, you know. But anyhow, it started for Kunming, or for Chabua, and it was just a freight plane. There wasn't any seats in it, just for the pilot and co-pilot and engineer. So I'm sitting back there on the floor of my chute pack, or seat pack. Then nothing to hang on to or anything, just sitting in the back of that airplane. And we ran into bad weather. And I thought, oh, I ain't going to make it now. I had one engine every now and then she'd cough, the old fire go clear back past the tail, you know, and seeing the almost fire rolling off the wingtips. Man, wow, this must be a nightmare. I couldn't believe it was happening. But anyhow, how they managed to do it, I don't know. But anyhow, we arrived at Chabua, let down, and here's the sure as we did. But that was my experience coming back. Then I hitched from there down to Karachi, and there I hitched my ride clear across to Casablanca. See, by that time I come home, well, we could come down along the coast of North Africa.
Yeah.
When we went over there, we were losing the war.
Yeah, Rommel was in Africa.
And there was 100% replacement. There was no crews coming home from that area. And that's where we figured we were going. We thought it was a one-way trip. And we were lucky enough, I guess you'd say, to be selected somehow or other to go to China instead of North Africa. But anyhow, I come down along there, and all the places we stopped, like Tripoli and those places, all the hangars were shot full of holes from Straysman, and it was quite a mess. But then in Casablanca, I was able to get on a C-54, went to the Azores, and then to Gander Bay, and then into New York City. So in just a very short time, I went from nothing about everything, and what?
Wait.
Oh yeah, that was tough doing it, but somebody had to do it. The guy said, "How long you want to stay in New York?" So, of course, if I'd hadn't been home for a while, I'd probably stayed for a while. But anyhow, I said, "Oh, probably a couple of days at the most." So they put me up in a hotel down there, me and two other guys, with the spars, which was a Women Marine Corps. I think there were 700 spars in that hotel.
Wow.
And we sat there in the lobby just like a kid in a candy shop. I wasn't too sure again whether I made the right decision. I made a lot of bad decisions.
How many Texans were there over there?
Texans, there were a lot of them.
I don't know.
No,
On your crew.
We didn't have
On the crew?
Your crew.
We had our squadron. Our squadron was mostly New England. You know.
we had Kate,
Massachusetts crew.
Tom, Kate, and Milt were the only Texans.
I believe we had two.
You were from Alabama.
I was from Alabama.
Yeah.
Well, at that time, yeah.
Yeah.
Gibson was from California, and Garrett was from Kentucky, and Hebner from Pennsylvania, and
Rifle, New York.
and McCabe from Arizona.
Chico, and
He was based in Las Cruces.
Yeah, Las
Yeah.
Cruces.
It's just two of us. It's just Kate's and I, and
He was
the navigator.
teasing.
Well, there was always a lot of Texans around. Well, Jamie, he was from Texas. I think Jesse DeHay was from Texas.
Brownwood.
Yeah, and there was quite a number of them.
We had a mixture, huh?
Yeah, and
I got one last question for y'all. I was going to ask y'all objectively as possible to judge each other's job performance, because y'all flew with different crews and different people.
Well, no, we'll lie about it.
I know you are, but I want to hear those lies anyway.
We'll lie about that.
And I'm going to start with over here
Yeah.
with Norman, and let y'all tell us what y'all thought about Norman as an engineer. Was he pretty good?
Well, Norman did all right. Yeah, he didn't. He kept the engines going and kept gassing the tanks most of the time, you know, and just like Tom, you know, he kept enough bombs in the rack all the time, and of course he couldn't hit the side of a barn with a frying pan. You know?
Yeah, he just.
No, that's the greatest. We wouldn't be here.
That's right.
If we had any marginal performance, you know, everybody was just super at their job, you know, and by super I mean for a bunch of country kids with the minimum and practically in a lot of cases no damn training at all. We worked strictly on instinct, you know, and that's all we had to go on, because they didn't teach us very damn much about winning the war. That had to come that had to be inbred and come.
Had to figure that out for
You had to figure that out for yourself, yeah. Because that's why the Vietnam War was so tough. They had a bunch of educated people there that saw other parts of life. We didn't. They just sent us over there as a bunch of, teenagers practically, and that's the only way you're going to win the war. As soon as you start sending an old married man over, you're going to have one hell of a time winning the war, And they're going to find too many. One other thing I'd like to mention is that when we left Morrison Field, Florida, we had 6 crews, which was 10 per crew. That's 60 people. And to the best of my knowledge, when we come home, we were the last of those 60 to come home, and I think 16 of those 60 come home, Wow. And 10 of them were ours, of those 16, because the other 5 crews, 4 of the crews were wiped out, and 1 was almost wiped out. So we considered good Lord was on our side, I tell you, because coming back.
It was always a pleasure to fly with your own crew because you knew what you could expect from each other, and every man on the crew had a job to do, and he did a damn good job of it,
Well, they all tried, and they did the best that they could. And, of course, the other thing is, even though I was the pilot and so-called the supervisor, I was so ignorant and dumb, I didn't know whether they were doing the right job or not. We didn't know ourselves, But we were just hoping that as long as they were trying hard, were conscientious, we knew that that's all it was going to take, and that's what we did,
Very good. Well, we're going to sign off there. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay.
You did wonderful.
Oh, I do too. Prior to taking off in Luzhou, China, and flying a 13-hour flight, and had the right actuator cylinder shot out on landing gear, so we couldn't get the right gear down. We come and landed in the wee hours in the morning in Kunming. So with the right gear down, the right prop touches the ground and it pulled out. So, but we landed and there wasn't any injury, but
this will be an answer to a question you asked a while ago. We had done everything we could to crank this gear down to lock, and it had, like I said, a cable about the size of my finger here that Tom and I cranked, finally broke that big cable trying to lock it. But when we started to come in, we had no flaps because the colonel didn't know how to lower them, and he said he did. But Milt and I, we talked about how the possibility of landing. The left wheel was down in lock, and had he been, we thought if he could touch that left wheel and hit the rudder and skid over onto this wheel before it touched the ground,
well, we
bound a lot. Well, Milt come in hot as it could in that airplane. He hit that wheel just exactly like we planned it, and he skidded over like we planned it, which was one of the best pieces of flying I've ever been.
We bounced it a couple of times thinking that we could jar it down, but it wouldn't come down. So we just...
You can't imagine the skill of landing that plane that day, though.
But, that was at night. It was dark. Now, here's you can have this in Tom.
Turn that away.
This is Tom.
Put it down a little bit. There you go.
This is Tom with General Chenault pinning the Purple Heart on it.
I don't have one. Do I what?
No, we don't. We'll give it to you. We'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's after he deserted the crew and flew with Milliken. Pitched for headquarters, 14th Air Force, and General Stone, he was the catcher,
And you didn't hit him.
Yeah, right.
So that's softball. Okay.
Let's see what else we got here. Here's another one Tom needs. There's another. Tom sitting on the eggs, getting ready to go out on the mission,
Remember that time we went?
Yeah.
This is another one we cranked.
Yeah, I'll give this one to...
I've got that one.
You got that?
Yeah.
Well, I'll give that to Margie.
What? Let me see him. Turn him around so I can see what we got here.
That's
Set it out here where I can get
one of his Chinese girlfriends,
That Milt picking me up where I can pat that little picture on the boob.
Yeah.
Is that you doing that?
Yeah, that's him picking me up.
Yeah. Well, I can't look real close at this, but right here is the Japanese are bombing us, And of course, then we're between raids here, and we're sitting on the. But this is Chico. You can tell how dark he is. Tom and them and Bonds may be on there too. I don't know. I can't tell. You know. And I think Charlie Haynes is on here on one of these, and Ross McLeod's on one of these too. But I can't
Remember that day when we was playing ball and they had me out at home plate, and the guy that holding the ball out there just put me out. I reached up, slapped the ball out of his hand, and man, they called me saving. And then that old boy get mad.
Of course, here's our regular crew. Here's our complete crew with Jamie Goff, our squadron commander, with us. He's the one that's down at McAllen, not at McAllen, at Mercedes he lives. He's the vice president of Valley National Bank in Harlingen. He's retired Major General. And
Yep, that's Jimmy.
Yeah.